On the date of March 5, 1770, a monumental event happened called the Boston Massacre. It was a tragic event that took 5 lives. These lives were taken by British soldiers who felt intimidated and humiliated by mobs of people throwing snowballs and sticks. The British soldiers retaliated by shooting a volley of shots at the colonists. We want to try to prove that both sides are guilty.
During the Boston Massacre, 5 people were shot and killed by British soldiers. The first victim was Crispus Attucks. He was an African American who is now viewed as a casualty of the Revolutionary War.
The second victim of the Boston Massacre was Samuel Maverick. Samuel Maverick was a 17-year-old young man. He was innocent, but he was still killed because he was near King Street where the massacre was held.
The third victim was a rope maker called Samuel Gray. He was killed just because he was walking down the street. Even though the shooting of Samuel Gray was unprovoked, he was still killed.
The fourth man who was killed was a 17-year-old young man by the name of James Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell was killed after Samuel Gray. James Caldwell was shot in the back by British soldiers.
The fifth victim was Patrick Carr. He died 9 days after the massacre. He was able to communicate a little before he died, unlike many people. He did not blame the British soldiers. He was killed when he was walking down the street with his friend.
The soldiers who killed these men were Thomas Preston, Private Hugh White, Captain John Goldfinch, Corporal William Weems, Lieutenant James Bassett, and Private Hugh Montgomery. These men should have been held responsible for their actions because they could have turned to different options, but they turned themselves into murderers because they lost their temper. Not all of these men actually killed the colonists, but they still shot at the colonists out of rage and fear.
The agitators of this event, Edward Garrick and Bartholomew Borders, these people started talking to the British soldiers as if they were not authority. These people gave influence to other people to talk back to the British soldiers. They started insulting them and influencing the British soldiers to retaliate. If it wasn't for those antagonizers who were bad-mouthing the soldiers about the taxes they had to pay, because of the antagonizers, the colonists disobeyed the laws and humiliated and threw things at the soldiers. Then the soldiers, out of rage and fear, shot a volley of shots at the group of colonists. Many people think that the colonists should not be blamed for their actions, but there are many reasons why the colonists should have to pay for their actions.
The witnesses of the trials that were held after the massacre, the people who were interviewed were Theodore Bliss, Benjamin Burdick, Robert Goddard, Nathaniel Fosdick, Governor Thomas Hutchinson, Richard Palms, William Wyatt, Thomas Preston, Edward Garish, Thomas Marshall, Ebenezer Hinckley, Peter Cunningham, Alexander Cruikshanks, Henry Knox, Daniel Califf, Damian Morton, Isaac Pierce, Joseph Belknap, Edward Hill, Matthew Murray, Danielle Cornwall, William Sawyer, Newton Prince, James Woodwall, and they cross-examined James Gifford and Thomas Peck. All of these people were on trial in front of the jury, but they never questioned a Bostonian because they thought it wouldn't make it a fair trial if they interviewed them. The trial was postponed for a long time so everyone could let their emotions calm down. The British were concerned if they put Bostonians on the trial, the perpetrators would be left off the hook. The Patriots were avoiding the situation because they thought there would be unfair conviction and would support the British if they said the wrong thing. At the end of the trials, the British soldiers were convicted, and even though they ended the trials quietly, Samuel Adams wrote many articles about it in the Gazette during December. Both groups should have been convicted, the British for the trouble they made with the soldiers and for breaking the law, the soldiers because they killed men only because of rage and fear when they could have arrested them.